"Why me among all others?" he whispered. "Your smile stole my heart." The alien woman blushed. The welcoming glow. Marcus Finn straightened his formal jacket as the transport shuttle descended toward Crystallis Station, the massive orbital platform that shimmered like a jewel against the void of space. 6 months of preparation, countless briefings, and endless simulations had led to this moment. The Velaran civilization had finally agreed to discuss sharing their revolutionary energy conversion technology, and Marcus had been chosen to lead the human negotiation team. The docking bay opened to reveal an architectural marvel of flowing curves and soft luminescence. Velaran officials waited in ceremonial formation, their distinctive bronze and copper patterns visible even from a distance. These markings, Marcus had learned, weren't tattoos, but natural bioluminescent features that shifted with emotion and health. As Marcus descended the ramp with his small delegation, he performed the traditional Velaran greeting, a slight bow with palms pressed together at chest level. The Velaran chief administrator, Counselor Dravan, returned the gesture with practiced grace. "Welcome to Crystallis, Negotiator Finn. We trust your journey was comfortable." "Very much so, Counselor. We're honored by your hospitality." The formalities continued as names were exchanged and credentials presented. Marcus found his attention wandering despite the importance of first impressions. The reception hall beyond the docking area beckoned with warm light and the gentle hum of what he assumed was Velaran music. Then he saw her. She stood slightly behind the main delegation, wearing robes that seemed to shimmer between deep blue and violet. Her patterns traced elegant lines from her temples down along her neck, disappearing beneath the fabric. But it was her expression that captured him, a genuine smile of welcome, untainted by the careful political neutrality worn by the others. Their eyes met, and Marcus felt something shift in his chest. The procession moved into the reception hall where refreshments and cultural displays awaited. Marcus performed his duties mechanically, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries, but his awareness kept returning to the woman with the bronze patterns. He learned her name from snippets of conversation, Lissa Torvin, cultural advisor to the council. As the crowd shifted during the ceremonial toast, Marcus found himself standing beside her. The traditional speech droned on about friendship and mutual prosperity. He leaned slightly toward her, keeping his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Forgive my directness, but among all the wonders I've encountered today, your smile outshines them all." Lissa's head turned sharply toward him, surprise evident in her widening eyes. Her patterns flared suddenly amber bright, the warm glow spreading across her visible skin like sunrise breaking over water. The reaction was involuntary, Marcus realized, a physical manifestation of her emotions that she couldn't control.
The Garden Conversations. The days following the welcome ceremony established a rhythm of formal meetings and careful diplomacy. Marcus found himself assigned to a subcommittee focused on cultural integration protocols, the framework that would govern how humans and Valerians would interact once the energy treaty was finalized. To his surprise and barely concealed delight, Lissa served as the Valeran representative on the same committee. Their first working session took place in a conference room with walls that shifted colors based on the emotional tenor of the discussion. Marcus watched, fascinated, as the surfaces moved from cool blues during technical discussions to warmer golds when they found common ground. "The key issue," Lissa explained, her voice carrying a melodic quality that Marcus found mesmerizing, "is that Valerans form deep emotional bonds through shared experiences. We don't separate professional relationships from personal ones the way humans apparently do. We're not as compartmentalized as our reputation suggests. We just express things differently." Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary. Lissa's patterns flickered, a quick pulse of warm copper that she seemed to catch and suppress. "Perhaps," she said softly, "we should continue this discussion somewhere less formal. The botanical gardens on level 7 offer a quieter environment." The gardens proved to be a revelation. Crystallis Station maintained an entire section dedicated to plant life from both Valeran and human worlds, creating an ecosystem that shouldn't exist, but somehow thrived. The air smelled of earth and something sweeter, almost like honey mixed with citrus. They walked along paths bordered by flowing water features, their conversation shifting from diplomatic necessities to personal histories. Marcus learned that Lissa had studied human culture for years, fascinated by the diversity of Earth's societies. She spoke 3 human languages and had read extensively in human philosophy. "I have always wondered," she said, as they paused beside a bed of flowers that resembled roses, but glowed faintly in the filtered light. "What drives humans to explore so far from home? Valerans are cautious by nature. We expand slowly, carefully, but humans seem to leap into the unknown." Marcus smiled. "Maybe we're running towards something rather than away, looking for connections, for understanding, for—" He paused, aware he was about to cross a line, "for something that makes us feel less alone in the universe." Lissa turned to face him fully. Her patterns had settled into a soft golden shimmer that Marcus reminded her of candlelight. "And have you found it? That connection?" Before he could answer, a gust from the ventilation system dislodged a petal from the flower beside them. It drifted down, landing on Lissa's shoulder. Marcus reached out instinctively to brush it away, his fingers grazing the exposed skin near her collarbone. The effect was immediate. Lissa's patterns blazed brilliant gold, racing across her skin like liquid light. She drew in a sharp breath and Marcus froze, his hand still extended. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to—" "No," Lissa interrupted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's just— direct skin contact intensifies emotional resonance for Valerans. Your touch—" She trailed off, her patterns still glowing warmly. Marcus slowly lowered his hand, but he didn't step back. What did it feel like? Lissa met his eyes, vulnerability clear in her expression. Like warmth spreading through water, like recognition. She hesitated, then added, "Like coming home." The silence stretched between them heavy, with implications neither was quite ready to voice. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice rough with emotion. "These committee meetings might become my favorite part of the day." Lissa's smile returned, genuine and unguarded. "Mine as well, Negotiator Finn." "Marcus," he corrected. "When we're alone like this, please call me Marcus." "Marcus," she repeated, and the way she shaped his name made something in his chest tighten with longing. The opposition rises. The third week of negotiations brought unexpected complications. Marcus noticed the shift during the morning briefing when his own delegation head, Ambassador Reeves, regarded him with barely concealed disapproval. "We need to discuss your conduct, Finn," Reeves said after dismissing the others. "You've been spending considerable time with the Velaran Cultural Advisor, alone." Marcus kept his expression neutral despite the warning bells in his mind. "She's my counterpart on the Cultural Integration Committee. We're developing the framework you approved." Framework development doesn't require private walks in botanical gardens or extended conversations on observation decks or, Reeves consulted his tablet, sharing meals in quiet corners of the dining facilities. So they were being watched. Marcus shouldn't have been surprised, but the invasion felt visceral nonetheless. "My relationship with Advisor Torvin is professional and productive. Our work has advanced significantly." "Your relationship," Reeves emphasized the word coldly, "is becoming a distraction and a liability. Conservative factions in the Velaran Council are already questioning whether emotional compromise might affect the treaty terms. And frankly, some in our own delegation wonder the same." Marcus felt anger rising but forced it down. "Has the quality of my work suffered? That's not the point. Perception matters in diplomacy. I'm reassigning the Cultural Committee to Jensen. You'll focus solely on the energy conversion protocols." The directive felt like a physical blow, but Marcus simply nodded. "Understood, Ambassador." He found Lissa later that day in the gardens where they'd first truly talked. Her patterns were dimmed to a dull bronze, and her eyes held shadows he hadn't seen before. "They've spoken to you as well," Marcus said. "Not quite a question." Lissa nodded. "Counselor Theron called me before the sunrise meditation. She said my patterns have been unseemly in public, that I'm showing favoritism that undermines our negotiating position." She turned to face me, pain evident in every line of her posture. "They're not entirely wrong. I haven't been as objective as my role requires." "Is that what this is? A lack of objectivity?" Marcus stepped closer, drawn by the need to comfort her despite knowing it would only complicate matters. "You know it's more than that," Lissa's voice broke slightly. "But perhaps they're right to intervene. Our peoples have never attempted this kind of partnership. What if our feelings compromise the treaty? What if, because of us, both our worlds lose this opportunity?" The weight of responsibility settled heavily on Marcus's shoulders. Everything they'd been building, the late-night conversations, the stolen moments, the growing certainty that he'd found something rare and precious, suddenly felt selfish. "Then we pull back," he said, each word painful. "We maintain distance, professional only." Lissa's patterns flickered with distress, pulsing erratically. "Marcus!" "It's the right thing," he continued, trying to convince himself as much as her. "We can't let our feelings endanger something bigger than ourselves." That evening's formal dinner was torture. Marcus sat at the human delegation table while Lissa was positioned with the Velarin officials across the vast hall. Their eyes met once, briefly, and the longing was so intense Marcus had to look away. He barely tasted the carefully prepared fusion cuisine. Beside him, Jensen made small talk about the energy protocols, completely oblivious to the fact that Marcus's entire world had just contracted to a single point of awareness across the room. When Lissa stood to leave early, her patterns were the dimmest he'd ever seen them, barely visible copper traces against her skin. She didn't look his way. Marcus excused himself shortly after, retreating to his quarters. He stood at the viewport, staring at the planet below, and wondered how something that felt so right could be so complicated. His reflection in the glass looked tired, older somehow. The door chime startled him. When it opened, Lissa stood in the corridor, still wearing her formal robes. Her patterns pulsed with agitation and determination. "This is foolish," he said without preamble. "I shouldn't be here." "No," Marcus agreed. "You shouldn't." Neither of them moved to close the door. Lissa stepped inside, and the door whispered shut behind her. The small quarters suddenly felt even smaller, with both of them standing there, the air thick with everything unsaid. "I can't do this," Lissa said, her voice strained. "I can't pretend you're just another diplomat. I can't sit in readings and act as though my patterns don't react every time you speak, as though I don't search for you in every room I enter." Marcus closed his eyes briefly, fighting the urge to reach for her. "Lissa, we agreed." "You agreed. I simply didn't argue." Her patterns flared brighter, shifting through amber and gold in rapid succession. "But agreement and acceptance aren't the same thing. Tell me honestly, Marcus, can you forget what's growing between us? Can you simply switch off what you feel?" "No," he admitted, the word torn from somewhere deep. "But what choice do we have? If we continue down this path and the treaty fails because of us, then we'll have tried for something real in a universe of political convenience." Lissa moved closer, close enough that he could see the intricate details of her patterns, the way they branched and flowed like rivers of light beneath her skin. "My people have a saying, a life lived in fear of connection is no life at all, merely existence." Marcus cupped her face gently, his thumb tracing the line where her pattern curved along her cheekbone. Her skin was warm, softer than he imagined. "And if they recall you? Send you away from Crystallis? Then at least I'll carry this moment with me." She leaned into his touch, her own hand coming up to rest against his chest, over his heart. "Feel that. Your heartbeat matches the rhythm of my patterns when they pulse. We're already connected, Marcus. Denying it won't make it less true." He kissed her then, unable to resist any longer. Her lips were soft and warm, and when she responded, her entire body seemed to glow brighter. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, then deepened as weeks of suppressed longing found release. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Lys's patterns were blazing gold and silver, more radiant than he'd ever seen them. They stood holding each other, foreheads touching, existing in a bubble of intimacy that felt separate from the complications waiting outside. "We can't hide this," Marcus whispered, "even if we wanted to." Lys's patterns pulsed in agreement. "No, and I don't want to." But reality intruded the next morning when Marcus arrived at the Energy Protocol meeting to find Ambassador Reeves waiting with a grim expression and 2 security officers. "Negotiator Finn, we need to discuss a serious matter. Classified information regarding our energy conversion capabilities was accessed from your terminal last night." Marcus's blood went cold. "That's impossible. I was in my quarters all evening." With Valoran advisor Torvin, according to corridor surveillance, Reeves' expression was hard, which raises questions about whether the breach was intentional or if you were compromised through your relationship. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Marcus felt anger surge through him. "You're suggesting I betrayed my own people, or that Lyssa is a spy? I'm suggesting that emotional entanglement clouds judgment and creates vulnerabilities. The security team is investigating, but until this is resolved, you're suspended from all negotiations, confined to quarters except for scheduled questioning." The next 3 days were agony. Marcus was interrogated repeatedly about his relationship with Lyssa, about what information he might have shared, about whether he'd been manipulated. Each question felt like an assault on something precious and private. I learned through my assistant that Lyssa faced similar treatment from the Valoran Council. Worse, the leaked information had created a crisis. The Valoran traditionalists now demand complete withdrawal from negotiations, claiming humans couldn't be trusted with sensitive technology. On the 4th day, Marcus was finally allowed access to his communication terminal. He found a message from Lyssa, text only, brief and devastating. "They're sending me home to Velar Prime. The Council believes my judgment has been compromised beyond recovery. I'm sorry for the pain this has caused you and your people. What we shared was real, even if the universe seems determined to prove otherwise. May your heart find peace, Marcus Finn." He read it 3 times, each word carving itself into his memory. His quarters felt suffocating, the walls closing in. He'd lost her, possibly destroyed both their careers and endangered a treaty that could benefit billions. That night, sleepless and desperate, Marcus began reviewing every file, every communication, every detail of the security breach. If someone had framed them, there had to be evidence. And if he couldn't have Lyssa, he could at least clear her name. The answer, when he found it, was almost absurdly simple. A junior technician on the human team, hoping to sabotage the treaty for personal ideological reasons, had spoofed Marcus's credentials. The timestamps proved Marcus couldn't have made the access. He was with Lyssa, and corridor cameras confirmed neither had left his quarters during the breach window. Armed with evidence, Marcus demanded an emergency meeting with both delegations.
The new path forward. The joint council chamber was tense with barely suppressed hostility when Marcus entered. Ambassador Reeves sat stone-faced at the human delegation table. Across from him, Councillor Dravon and the other Valeran officials maintained careful neutrality. Lyssa was conspicuously absent, already en route to her homeland, according to the schedule Marcus had desperately obtained. "This better be worth interrupting the damage control negotiations," Reeves said coldly. Marcus activated the central display, pulling up the evidence he'd compiled. "The security breach wasn't committed by me or advisor Torvin. Junior Technician Davies accessed my terminal using spoofed credentials while I was provably elsewhere. His personal communications show ideological opposition to alien integration." He highlighted the relevant files, watching both delegations lean forward. He wanted to sabotage the treaty and chose to frame the relationship between Lyssa and myself as the mechanism. Councillor Drevon's expression shifted from stern disapproval to careful consideration. "This evidence appears conclusive. Why didn't your security team discover this?" "Because they were investigating the wrong crime," Marcus said, quietly. "They were so focused on whether feelings had compromised us that they didn't look for external manipulation. They assumed connection was weakness
rather than considering it might be strength. Reeves cleared his throat. Be that as it may, the breach happened because of inadequate protocols, and the personal relationship still represents a complication. Does it? Marcus turned to face both delegations, fully, decision crystallizing in his mind. Or does it represent exactly what this treaty is supposed to achieve? We're not just trading technology and resources. We're talking about true integration, about our peoples learning to coexist, to understand each other. How can we build that future if we treat emotional connection as contamination? Feelings compromise objectivity, one of the human delegates objected. Feelings provide context, Marcus countered. They create investment in outcomes that benefit both sides, rather than just calculating advantage. Lissa and I didn't become less committed to our people's interests. We became committed to finding solutions that honored both. Counselor Theron, the Valeran who'd initially opposed Lissa's conduct, spoke up. That's a noble sentiment, Negotiator Finn, but Valeran tradition is clear about maintaining professional distance. Then perhaps tradition needs to evolve, Marcus said, knowing he was gambling his entire career on this moment. Both our civilizations are at a crossroads. We can maintain our separations, our suspicions, our careful distances, or we can acknowledge that real partnership, real understanding, requires the courage to be vulnerable with each other. He took a breath, then committed fully. I'm in love with Lissa Torvin. That's not a compromise of my duty. It's a confirmation that the bridge between our peoples isn't just possible. It already exists. What we feel for each other is proof that humans and Valerans can connect on the deepest levels. And if that frightens you, if that seems dangerous, then maybe you need to ask yourselves what kind of alliance you're really trying to build. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat, feel the weight of every eye in the room. Finally, Counselor Dravon stood. You risk much speaking so openly, Negotiator Finn. I've already lost what matters most. There's nothing left to risk. The Valeran counselor's patterns shifted to a contemplative blue. There is wisdom in what you say, though it challenges our comfortable assumptions. Perhaps we've been too hasty. Counselor Theron, what would happen to Advisor Torvin's patterns if we forcibly separated her from someone she'd bonded with? Theron's expression was troubled. They would dim, possibly permanently. Emotional severing causes deep trauma in our people. And we would inflict this knowingly? Dravon challenged. In the name of protocol? The debate that followed consumed hours. Marcus answered questions about his intentions, his commitment to the treaty, his vision for human-Valeran relations. Slowly, grudgingly, he watched positions shift. Ambassador Reeves finally stood. I propose a new framework, a formal cultural exchange program that specifically addresses interpersonal relationships between species. If Finn and Advisor Torvin want to be together, they can be the test case, fully transparent, properly documented, serving as proof of concept. They would essentially become ambassadors of integration itself, living symbols of what our alliance could achieve, Dravon mused. With appropriate oversight, Theron added, though her tone had softened considerably. And regular reporting on how cultural differences are navigated. Marcus felt hope kindle in his chest for the first time in days. I accept those terms, assuming Lissa agrees. Then we should ask her, Dravon said, activating a communication channel. Her transport hasn't left the system yet. When Lissa's face appeared on the screen, her patterns were the dimmest Marcus had ever seen them, barely visible traces of bronze against pale skin. But when she saw him, they flickered, struggling toward brightness. Marcus? What's happening? He smiled, feeling tears prick his eyes. I'm fighting for us, for the right to love you openly and still serve our peoples. Will you stand with me?" Lissa's patterns blazed, suddenly brilliant, gold and silver racing across her skin like sunrise breaking through clouds. "Always. Wherever you are, Marcus Finn, that's where I choose to stand." 3 months later, the treaty was signed with expanded provisions for cultural exchange and integration. Marcus and Lissa stood together before both delegations, hands intertwined, as they were formally appointed as the first ambassadors of the new program. "Your role," Counselor Javon explained, "is to live honestly, to navigate the challenges of cross-species partnership and document what you learn, to be proof that understanding bridges all divides." Marcus looked at Lissa, at the way her patterns pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, at the love shining in her eyes. "I can do that?" "Yes," Lissa agreed, squeezing his hand. As they left the ceremony together, walking through the gardens where they'd first truly connected, Marcus marveled at how a single whispered compliment had led to this, how a smile had stolen his heart and changed the course of two civilizations. "What are you thinking?" Lissa asked, leaning against his shoulder. "That sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply be honest about what we feel. That connection isn't weakness, it's the foundation everything else is built on." Lissa's patterns glowed warm gold, content and radiant. "Then let's build something beautiful together, Marcus. For us and for everyone watching." He kissed her temple softly, breathing in the honey citrus scent of her skin. "We already have, and this is just the beginning." Above them, through the transparent dome of the gardens, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, human and Valeran suns alike, no longer separated by distance or difference, but connected by the simple, revolutionary power of two hearts choosing each other across the void.